About a month ago, on my website, which is sanders.senate.gov, I requested that Vermonters email me about what the collapse of the middle class means to them personally, not in esoteric economic terms, but in a sense of what they are going through. And frankly, we are a small state, and our people are pretty reticent. People in Vermont don't like to open up and tell everybody all of the problems that they have. They try to keep it to themselves. And we expected that we'd receive perhaps a few dozen replies. In fact, over the last month, we have received some 700 emails that came into my office talking about how people in the middle class today are trying desperately to survive. About 90% of the emails came from the state of Vermont. We've had a number from around the rest of the country. Mr. President, I sometimes think that many of our colleagues here really don't have much of a clue about what is going on in the real world. It is no great secret that the lobbies of Congress are filled with lobbyists who make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, representing the energy companies, the coal companies, the oil companies, the drug companies, the insurance companies, the banks, credit card companies. They're all over the place. And they try to influence and are successful in many instances influencing Congress to pass legislation that protect the interests of multinational corporations or the wealthiest people in this country. It is far too rare that we hear the pain and the reality of life that's going on among ordinary people, especially people who come from a rural state like mine. And what I would like to do, Mr. President, is spend most of my time doing nothing more than just reading to my colleagues and to the American people some of the reality that takes place in a small rural state, which I think is not radically different than what is taking place today all over this country. And all of these are verbatim emails that I receive from families in the state of Vermont. Let me begin by reading one which says, and I quote, "I make less than $35,000 a year and work hard to earn that. I am trying to get by with rising costs of fuel. I have a wife and 4 kids that I love dearly, and I'm trying to do the best that I can for them. With the cost of gas pushing $4 a gallon and the price of heating oil up to over $4 a gallon, it is hard to make ends meet. On top of that, the furnace that heats the house and keeps my kids warm died today, and while it will not need to run much longer, the nights are still too cold for a 3-year-old. I am not sure how I am going to pay for the repairs. I never thought that I would be classified as poor, having grown up in an upper-middle-class family, but that is where I am now. I don't know what we need to do, but I know we need to do something before the middle class is a thing of the past." End of quote. And, Mr. President, as I read these stories, what you're going to hear today in the year 2008 is that children are going cold in America. And we have got to understand that. This is one example. I will read more. And anyone who thinks it's not true doesn't know what's going on in the real world. Here's another email that I received. Quote, "I am a teacher with 20 years of experience, and I have a master's degree. As a single parent, I am struggling every day to put food on the table." This is a teacher with a master's degree. "Our clothes all come from thrift stores. I have a 5-year-old car that needs work. My son is gifted and talented. I tried to sell my house to enroll him in a school that had curriculum available for his special needs. After 2 years on the market, my house never sold. The property taxes have nearly doubled in 10 years, and the price of heating oil is prohibitive. To meet the needs of my son, I have let the house sit and moved into an apartment near his high school. I don't go to church many Sundays because the gasoline is too expensive to drive there." Now, I wonder how many people all over this country are facing that same reality. Let me read it right from her letter. "I don't go to church many Sundays because the gasoline is too expensive to drive there. Every thought of an activity is dependent on the cost. I can only purchase food from dented can stores. I don't know how I can continue this way for 2 more years of my son's high school, yet I am trying to meet his academic and psychological needs. I know that I will never be able to retire on a teacher's retirement with no insurance. I am stretched to the breaking point with no help in sight. End of quote. End of email. This is a teacher with a master's degree. This is not somebody who was unemployed, who never graduated high school. This is solid middle class. This is her reality. Here's another story. My wife and I live in rural Vermont. We own a home and make about $75,000 a year combined, which is, in Vermont, not a bad income. We own 2 vehicles and travel about 74 miles a day round trip to get to our jobs. Not only is the price of gas killing us, I have been displaced from 2 jobs in the last 9 years due to the exportation of jobs overseas. My current job is in jeopardy of being downsized due to the economy. Every job I have had since I moved here in 1999 has paid less with less benefits. We are spending our life savings just to make ends meet. And when you read these stories, you hear recurring themes: the price of gas, people losing their jobs due to outsourcing. Over and over again, these themes keep reappearing. Here's another story. And again, I want to reiterate, Mr. President, these are not, quote unquote, poor people. These are not homeless people. These are not people without any education. These are people who once considered themselves to be part of the American middle class, and like millions and millions of other people, that middle class life is rapidly disappearing. Quote, this is another letter. I work full-time at the largest hospital in Vermont. I am in more debt now than I was 10 years ago as a single mother going full-time to college and waitressing to make ends meet. When is something going to be done to lower gas prices, which have exponentially raised the cost of everything? I would love to just tell my children, yes, we can go out to the movies and not have it break the bank, end of quote. In other words, what you're seeing all over this country is for people that just take a ride to church. They go to the movies. They no longer can perform these basic joys of life because they just can't afford to do that anymore. Here's another letter. My husband and I have lived in Vermont our whole lives. We have 2 small children, a baby and a toddler, and felt fortunate to own our own house and land. But due to the increasing fuel prices, we have at times had to choose between baby food, diapers, and heating fuel. We've run out of heating fuel 3 times so far, and the baby has ended up in the hospital with pneumonia 2 of the times. We try to keep the kids warm with an electric space heater on those nights, but that just doesn't do the trick. My husband does what he can just to scrape enough money for car fuel each week, and we've gone from 3 vehicles to 1 just to try and get by without going further into debt. We were going to sell the house and rent, but the rent around here is higher than what we pay for our monthly mortgage and property taxes combined. Please help. Here is a story. In America in 2008, family not having enough heat, child getting pneumonia. This is the United States of America, 2008. And she asked, please help. Well, let's help. This is from North Central Vermont. Due to illness, my ability to work has been severely limited. I am making $10 an hour, and if I am lucky, I get 35 hours a week of work. At this time, I'm only getting 20 hours as it is off-season in Stowe, which is a major recreation area in Vermont. It does not take a mathematician to do the figures. How are my wife and I supposed to live on a monthly take-home income of less than $800? We do it by spending our hard-earned retirement savings. I am 50 and my wife is 49. At the rate we are going, we will be destitute in just a few years. The situation is so dire that that is all that I can think about. Now listen to this. Soon I will have to start walking to work an 8-mile round trip because the price of energy is so high and either it is that or going without heat. United States of America, the year 2008, somebody walking 4 miles to work, 4 miles back, or the alternative, not having enough money to heat their home. As bad as our situation is, I know many in worse shape. We try to donate food when we do our weekly shopping, but now we are not able to even afford to help our neighbors eat. What has this country come to? Imagine that, having to walk 4 miles, and they donate food for people who are worse off than they are.